We are back on the record. Everyone is present. Are we ready to proceed?
Your Honor, I was asked the number who have spoken thus far. The number is 85.
Technically, I differ with you a little bit.
Yeah,
And I'll tell you what, I have that we're on number 90, and that's because I've included the parents, the sister, and all of that, so.
So I have not included that as for a victim impact. I have also not included Lindsay Lemke twice, and I have not included Dr. Karaginas. So purely
I did include.
victims. Okay.
So I have that we're on number 90. And technically, if anybody really wants to know that number, the keeper of everything is Ms. Hamlin. She could do a count, but not now.
You're next for survivor speakers. Asked to be placed together. They have formed, in addition to a number of the women who testified yesterday, a very strong bond and support group of sorts. So our first survivor that you'll hear from is Alexis Alvarado, and I believe she may have her mom come up, right? And more others, and Andrea Mumford. We get to see that, Detective Lieutenant Mumford. And I have a photograph of Alexis displayed as well.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Could you please state and spell your name for the record?
Alexis Alvarado, A-L-E-X-I-S A-L-V-A-R-A-D-O.
All right. You're a little soft-spoken. Can you just bend that microphone a little bit? Okay.
Is that
you don't have to bend into it. I just need you to keep your voice up. And I know you're a little nervous, but breathe. We need to get you some water.
I guess.
Thank you very much. Take a break if you need to, okay? Mom's right there. She's got it.
It's my boyfriend's mom.
Your boyfriend, same thing, very close, okay? Exactly the same. You must have a close relationship to be up here, so thank you for being here. Okay.
My name is Alexis Alvarado, and my childhood innocence was stolen from me at the hands of Larry Nassar at the age of 12. When I first met Larry, he seemed nice, caring, and easy to talk to. He would often give me little gifts, such as autographed photos of famous gymnasts, which made me feel special and as though you actually cared. I vividly remember one of my first appointments with him, which took place in 2010. I remember it so clearly because at this appointment, he inserted his ungloved fingers into me, supposedly to treat my back pain. I remember telling him that it really hurt, and he responded by telling me to relax as he continued the abuse. He then asked if my back felt better. I lied and said yes in the hopes that it would stop. Afterwards, I remember going into the bathroom and feeling as though something was wrong, but he was a doctor and I trusted that he was there to help me. To this day, I still vividly remember the feeling of guilt in my stomach and the pressure on my chest. I was only 12. This abuse continued for 6 years. Many people have questioned why I didn't say anything about this sooner. I was only a child when this abuse first started. I didn't know that what he was doing was wrong, and I was taught that it is not okay for anyone to touch you down there unless it's a doctor, and you were a world-renowned doctor. You betrayed my trust in the most vile way possible. I actually believed the lie that somehow this was my fault and I deserved it. I know now that that is not true. My little cousin is only 13, and she's so innocent and small. I was a year younger than her when you started abusing me. I know now something like that couldn't have been my fault. I saw Larry from 2010 to 2016. In 2014, there was a Title IX investigation into the treatment he was performing. During this investigation, he was cleared of all wrongdoing and was supposed to have someone in the room during all appointments, and you were supposed to limit skin-to-skin contact in sensitive areas. Had my parents and I been informed of this in 2014, I would not have gone back to see him. I would now like to address the individuals and the organizations that enabled him.
May I proceed?
To Kathy Klages, I remember coming to your MSU gymnastics camp. I looked up to you and I admired you, but unfortunately, you failed me and so many others. You were a mandated reporter and you failed to report. If I were you, I would feel pretty guilty right about now for allowing so many young, innocent lives to be ruined. To Brooke Lemon, I saw you as a patient when Larry was out of the country. I trusted you and you betrayed me as well. You removed confidential patient files from the office and you have the nerve to call yourself a professional. To John Geddert, you are as much of a monster as Larry. You also were a mandated reporter and you failed to report. You should be ashamed of yourself. Lastly, I would like to address Luanna Simon. Why are you not here? I do not want to hear another bullshit excuse from you that you are too busy or that you don't want to take away from us. You need to be here to listen to us. You are part of the reason we are here for not stopping this. You are a coward for not showing your face. You, along with Michigan State University, claim that you were unaware of what was happening. My question to you is how could you not know when there were so many people made aware of this? I have never been so disappointed in Michigan State University than I am right now. To you, Larry, you betrayed my trust and used my innocence against me. You broke and shattered my life. You're a coward. The past 16 months have not been easy for me as I have tried to cope and come to terms with what you did to me at such a young age. Every day I have to live with the consequences of something that I had no control of. I have suffered from depression, anxiety, tremendous guilt, embarrassment, and even suicidal thoughts. It has been so difficult for me to get a good night's sleep without seeing your face in my dreams. I was also very concerned to have people know what you did to me for the fear of being judged, looked at differently, or looked at like I was damaged. All of those things became so overwhelming to the point that I was admitted inpatient at a psychiatric hospital. If you really think you're on the verge of a mental breakdown, newsflash, it sucks, and I hope you suffer through it just as I did. My relationships have been strained. I am fearful of being alone with men, and especially male doctors. My grades and GPA have drastically dropped. I am still working on overcoming all of these challenges, and it is definitely not an easy process. I was lucky enough to find my boyfriend, his family, and their friends. They have given me tremendous love and support. They do not judge me, and they do not look at me like I am broken. They love me for who I am, and for that, I'm grateful. Also, Larry, I would like to make it very clear, this is not Judge Aquilina's so-called circus that you called it. This is your hell, and I hope you burn in it. I have felt so many emotions this past year, some including anger, sadness, guilt, betrayal, and blame. I felt most of my anger towards you, Larry. I was so angry and confused about why you would intentionally hurt me or anyone else. Because of you, I will never be the same. However, this does not define me. I'm stronger than you. And I will make it through this. You are a monster, and I believe that you'll get what you deserve while I spend my lifetime healing and enjoying my life. I'm still working on being able to forgive you, but today I do not have it in me at all. It's hard for me to even look at you without remembering what you did. I know that when I decide to have kids, I'm going to raise them to be strong individuals. I will educate them on monsters like you and make sure they know how manipulative and deceitful predators really are. I still have the question as to why. Why would you do this? Do you regret throwing your whole life away for this? Do you have any remorse for what you did? Do you regret not being able to ever see your children grow up? Because of you, they will grow up without a father, and that's on you. I know that I will never have answers to these questions, and that is something that I'll have to live with. Being in court today is just one step towards justice for us, but there are still many individuals that helped enable Larry, and I believe that eventually the truth will come out and they will be held accountable. Nothing will ever be able to change what has already happened, but having Larry behind bars for the rest of his life will ensure that another young, innocent life doesn't get ruined. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You say you'll never be the same? No. You'll be better. You are courageous, you are powerful, you are tremendous. You have pulled together those shattered pieces. I know you don't feel that way now, but I think from here on out, you will feel taller and stronger every single day. You have just taken your power back. You also need to know that the best revenge, I know you didn't ask for revenge, but ultimately, putting him behind bars the rest of his life is a bit of revenge, right?
Yeah.
And I will make that decision. I appreciate your words. It will help me at sentencing, but here's the thing. I've always felt, because I'm not always favored or liked either, I don't give a damn, just like you shouldn't. And here's the thing. The best revenge is success, is speaking out, is doing exactly what you're doing. You are 1,000,000 feet tall right now, and you're going to stay that way and get stronger. And you need to tell yourself that every single day. The other thing that you've just done is publicly told the world that mandatory reporters, beware. We want you to do your job. We expect you to do your job. So I appreciate that, and thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Your Honor, the next survivor you will hear from is Morgan Mccall, and she is going to be publicly identified. I've displayed her picture at the age of the abuse, and accompanying her as her support person is her dance teacher.
Thank you. Please state and spell your name for the record.
Morgan, M-O-R-G-A-N, McCall, M-C-C-A-U-L.
Thank you for being here. What would you like me to know?
When I was just 2 years old, I witnessed a production of Alice in Wonderland. It was full of dazzling dance numbers which captured my tiny heart, and I knew right then and there I wanted to be a ballerina when I grew up. And so that's what I did. I spent my childhood practicing fouette turns and tour jetés, my summers preparing for Cicchetti ballet exams, and every moment in between dreaming up choreography for a performance of my own. Dance was my life's passion, my greatest combatant, and yet my greatest joy. It was my art, and it was my sport. But it is also the vehicle which drove my unassuming body into Larry Nassar's office. Larry, when I was just 12 years old, I walked into your office at the Michigan State University Sports Medicine Clinic in tremendous pain and seeking help to return to the sport that I loved most. I was in the 7th grade. I stood at a towering 4'10", and in you I saw not only the medical help I so desperately needed after tearing both of my hip flexors. I saw a physician that I aspired to be. I was your little goof. And so I looked to you as a role model, hoping to volunteer at MSU Sports Medicine alongside you someday. Do you remember taking me out to lunch after I job shadowed you at the clinic? I still have our friendly Facebook messages. In my mind, you were both my mentor and you were my friend. And it wasn't until 2016 that I realized that you molested me. Every shred of admiration I had for you is gone. Every excuse I told my 12-year-old self when you were penetrating me is gone. The man I thought I knew did not exist, only a selfish predator whose atrocities know no bounds. You violated the very principle of your calling. Do no harm. This past year and a half has been, without a doubt, the most difficult and traumatic period of my life. Your betrayal has caused me countless sleepless nights. When I do find sleep, I'm plagued with nightmares, and when I wake up, I'm living one. This has ruined my first year at the University of Michigan and robbed me of the college experience that every young girl deserves. Most tragic is that your crime has shaken my very image of myself. The sentiment has been echoed by hundreds of other women who've shared their most painful memories in this courtroom. It is perhaps your most vile transgression. But alas, Larry, you are merely a symptom of a sickness which plagues the very core of Michigan State University, threatening every little girl who steps foot on that campus. A culture of sexual abuse and the perverse, deliberate inaction to hold predators accountable. In the aftermath of Nassar's crimes, calls have been renewed for MSU President Luana K. Simon to resign. The fact that she has yet to do so is so insulting to the hundreds of survivors like me. It is in fact 42 months, countless slanderous public statements from Jason Cody, calls from numerous congressmen and women, and a $150,000 slap in the face of a raise too late. Since reports of Larry Nassar's misconduct to Michigan State faculty began in 1997, 2 years before I was even born, I can't help but wonder, how many little girls could have been spared from this lifelong battle if someone at the university had just done the bare minimum and listened? Judge Aquilina, I implore you to impose a sentence upon this man which sends an unmistakable message to those who perpetrate heinous crimes against young people, whether they molest and maim or look the other way to protect their green and white. Thank you, Your Honor.
As with everyone's statements, your statements will be considered as sentencing. I have heard you. Your words, your presence, your sincerity ring louder than just this courtroom and louder than just Michigan State University and all those persons, the places you've mentioned. Your voice rings through the world. It is very loud and strong, and what you've done is to help assist all of those perpetrators, and I hear that message in what you're asking, because I know you don't want anybody else to go through what you...
Never.
Never, yes. And I want you to know your words have danced through this courtroom, so your words are dancing even if you are not. I've heard you, and I have every shred of admiration for you and your sister survivors. Your words, the words of your sister survivors are performing miracles. They have a rippling effect that you, all of you, have not even realized. But there will come a time, there will come a day when the world recognizes how important your voices individually and collectively are. And those voices also will give offended nightmares. Thank you so much for being here.
Your Honor, the next survivor we're going to hear from, I don't say it. I'm trying to compose myself, but okay, is Trinae Gonzar, and she is a young woman who contacted us early this week, and she has decided to be publicly identified. And I have a photograph on the screen, and I have a number of folks here who are in support of her, including someone you heard from a couple of days ago, and this is Mom, her mother, and our next speaker as well, Larissa Boyce. Okay.
Thank you all for being up here, and thank you again for coming up here. I very well remember your strong words. Please state and spell your message. Your name. You got your message already. Please state and spell your name for the record, and then please proceed with your message.
Okay. My name is Trinae Gonzar. It's Trinea Gonczar.
Thank you. What would you like me to know?
Your Honor, I would appreciate more than rewind. Hang on here. I appreciate more than you will ever know of the chance of being able to speak to Larry. If you will allow it, I would like to address him directly.
You may. Take your time.
All right, we'd be here. Wow.
You're strong.
What have you done? My words are to you, Larry. We both know I've known you basically all of my life. In fact, I've known you 31 of 37 years. And this last year has traumatized me in ways you cannot even begin to imagine, as I've had to realize I was abused for many years of my life. And this, my old friend, is because of you. Initially, and only until recently, I have defended you. I have fought for you. I have believed you. I have had many sleepless, crying, heartbroken nights when this originally broke. I thought they must have misunderstood you. I was standing by you. I shouldn't have, but I did. This isn't something I'm proud of, but as more and more is coming out, I did. I defended you with my whole heart. I have seen photos of you and felt my heart break to see you this way. But Larry, you did this to yourself, and you did this to us. I am one of the originals, or from the old crew, one of the Great Lakes and Twistars gymnasts, where you were Larry before Stephanie, before you were a doctor, when you were a student in training under Dr. Howe, when you were not even in your 30s, when you would create healthy eating guidelines and muscle circuits for us to make sure we stayed uninjured. I thought you were always looking out for us. I remember your wedding. I remember the laughs we would have in the back room at Great Lakes. I remember you taping my shins and my heels with such care and perfection you had to teach my mom how to do it as competitions took me out of state, and aside from all of the other times, you were not able to tape me. I remember feeling so lucky to have you in my life. I remember you being such a big part of my life in my gymnastics days and after. I remember you fixing my hurt ankles, my wrist, and my shins. I remember feeling that if no one could fix me, you could. But I also remember you fixing my back and my hip. I remember the bathtub at your apartment in the beginning. I remember the egg timer on the toilet at the time I was to sit in the warm water so my body would be warm and you could stretch me. I remember the table in the living room. I remember the light in your kitchen. I remember the magazines you gave me to read of all of the other amazing gymnasts in our country. But I also remember the vaginal manipulations. I remember them always being part of my treatments. Whether I was there for my heels or my wrists, I was also always there for my back and my hips. I don't think I ever had a time I didn't get this treatment. I remember never thinking anything but whatever you did would make me better. I remember MSU sports medicine. I remember bringing my own shorts as the one they provided weren't very comfortable. I remember watching the newest Olympic gymnasts go up on the wall one by one as you grew more and more famous. I remember being scared you would leave us to become this super new doctor, and we would have to find someone new to put us back together. I remember the times at MSU Sports Medicine when my mom was there, or my dad, or many other times when I was alone. I remember my hip flexors hurting so badly that you would check my leg lengths to see if one of my hips were stuck. One usually was. And again, I always had treatment. I remember having a cyst on my ovary rupturing and you and Stephanie being there to greet me when I woke from surgery. I remember thinking Stephanie was the luckiest woman in the world. And I prayed I would find someone like you for myself. I never doubted you. I never felt scared of you. We loved you like family. We believed you looked out for us and protected us from harm. We literally loved you like family. Because we thought you loved us back. I truly never felt one time bad about what you did to me, ever. I trusted you with my body and my life. I trusted you as my doctor, and I trusted you as my friend. It wasn't until a few weeks ago that things started to really haunt me, and it came out of nowhere. It came time for my OBGYN to suggest me to see another office where I live. They had 18 doctors, but they wanted me to start at the practice with a man. Initially, I didn't think twice about this, as this has never been an issue before for me. But as the appointment approached, I started having full-blown panic attacks. This man was not going to be my doctor. Not for any reason. He was not going anywhere near me, in fact, and I've never met him. He wouldn't know why I was scared of him. I felt bad for this. I would cause him some kind of harm as a result of what happened to me years ago. What was happening to me, I wondered, and why was this happening now? Larry, I think you will be happy to know that I am 12 weeks pregnant today. It's a little boy. My family is doing well, and I have actually messaged Stephanie many times throughout this last year to let her know you were all in my prayers. But today I'm here for the little girls that have had to fight for themselves. For the ones that need to know they have me to turn to simply because I've lived this life for you, with you as long as I can remember. And in fact, I'm going to be okay. I'm here for Stephanie. I cannot believe what you have done to her. I cannot believe what you have done to your family. our family. My heart hurts for her and the kids every single day. How could you do this to them, to us, and why? Why lose everything and everything that was good? For what? I recently went to see a counselor as my guilt had become extremely heavy. I started remembering back to a very close person that came to me in 1997 and said, I think Larry did something bad to me. I asked her what he had done. She explained he had vaginally manipulated her. I calmed her down and explained to her what happened to her was completely okay, as it happened to me all the time. I thought about Bree Randall. She had come forward about this treatment, and I thought back then if I could explain to her what happened to her, she would understand it was okay too. Again, as it happened to me so many times, and it was only to make us better. Still, some tainted part of me thinks that maybe this was a medical procedure, and that at some point it turned dark for you. Because this procedure began for me much earlier than the time explained I read of 1998. This began for me when I was maybe 10 or 11 in 1990 or 1991. Once I started competing, I was just a level 5. I heard Sarah Klein speak, and she asked if she was the first. I've wondered the same. Or were we the first? Is this when it went wrong? Or was it always wrong? I struggle within myself every day to wonder this about you. I also remember my mom having your phone number on a private level in case I needed extra treatment. I cannot imagine what a parent goes through when they realize they were handing their daughter over to a person they trusted with our lives, and in turn it ending like this. The trust my parents had for you, the love my family had for you, the belief we had you were an angel sent from God, and how lucky we were to have you in our world, our gym, our city. I can't imagine even for you how you would be handling this had this been a trusted friend of yours that had done this to your daughters or your wife or one of us. How would you feel? Would you have been okay with this? I can't truly answer this for you anymore. I don't know who you are now. Or maybe I never knew. Maybe none of us did. They estimate, based on the time frame in my specific injuries, that the amount of time I saw you at your apartment or at the gym or at MSU, this treatment happened to me about 800 times. And I'm one of the lucky ones, ironically. Not for the numbers or the amount of treatments, but that I never thought you were hurting me. All while now I can wonder if that makes me more messed up, if it makes me extremely damaged, or if that's how you trained me to think. I wondered if someone had listened to Bree or Larissa or Sweet Kyle, or had I not silenced my own best friend, that maybe you would have been stopped, and that these sweet little beautiful faces and souls would not have been hurt. I look at these young girls here, and I told my mom the hardest part for me was to see how little they were. She said to me, you were that little too, if not younger. I am angry at this time in my life is now shattered and dark, that my days as a gymnast turned into a cloud of shame and embarrassment. I saw 2 MSU college gymnasts this weekend, and my niece wanted to get a picture with them as she loves the sport as well. I mentioned to them I was a former twister, and immediately their faces looked at me with a kind of fear. I will never forget the way that they looked at me. It was like they could see it. I could see my friends from childhood that knew me always as a gymnast, and now I can see them look at me and wonder, like, was she one of them? Did he do that to her? Many times of these days have gone from happy and strength to confusion and sadness. I still watch gymnastics on TV and videos of all the amazing Olympians and elites that have come forward, and I can't help but to also know their pain, their treatment, their nausea at your laugh that I used to love. These days were some of the best I've ever had. And I know now I just feel sad and ruined. There is nothing like feeling someone is looking out for you, and I know so many of us from the team and the girls I've lived and breathed, so many have such loyalty to you and what you did to actually fix us. I believed some part of you was good. Some part. But now I think, were you ever really fixing us? Were you ever real or true? I can say I'm grateful I never felt terrified of you the way the others did, and I always chalked it up that we saw you every single day, and that they maybe only saw you a few times. But that's also where my self-doubt and guilt has come into play. Were you ever worried for us as a result of this? Did it ever cross your mind that it was bad? Did you ever think what was best for us? Did you ever think what was best for your children? Or did you only think about yourself? If it wasn't you that was looking out for us, then who was? How could anyone have ever helped us if you convinced everyone that you were the good guy? I had to make an extremely hard choice this week, Larry. I had to choose whether to continue supporting you through this or to support them, the girls. I choose them, Larry. I choose to love them and protect them. I choose to stop caring for you and supporting you. I choose to look you in the face and tell you that you hurt us. You hurt me. And I will do everything for the rest of my life to make sure that the yous of you, this world, don't get to hurt another one of us. Larry, I pray for your soul. I pray for your family. I pray for everyone that is here and all of these out there that I know were for sure part of the back and hip injured group. And to the others that are scared to come forward and scared at the pain it will cause them to remember, I know that they're afraid to hurt you and our community. But I believe in doing the right thing, and I believe in the truth. And I hope for you that for the rest of your life you can choose to do the right thing. By us, by Stephanie, by your children, by our sport, by the women you've hurt, by the future of athletes to come, and to all of us that loved you like family. I hope some part of you is still good, and that some part of you wants to make this better. I hope some part of you will face the truth, and that some part of you will choose to do the right thing. I hope you will actually apologize with your heart to these women. I hope you can realize the trauma and hurt and fear and the pain this has caused. So many. I hope you will see it from me in my eyes today, that I believed in you always, until I couldn't anymore. I hope you cry like we cry. I hope you feel bad for what you've done. I hope more than anything each day these girls can feel less pain. I hope you want that for us. But this is goodbye to you, Larry. And this time it's time for me to close the door. It's time for me to stand up for these little girls and not stand behind you anymore, Larry. Goodbye, Larry. May God bless your dark, broken soul.
Thank you. Your words echo the sentiments of all of the other survivors. And they will also serve to protect other victims. You are sad now, but you have a wonderful event. Your child is coming, and I hope by then you can work on being happy, because you should really feel like awake this week, and I can see it. He ruined himself. I will consider what you have to say and have said, all of you, and set to say, but Your words that your dad ruined, you're not ruined. He ruined himself. Double all that on him. You are amazing. You're going to be an amazing mother, an amazing spokesperson. You've turned this, I hate to call it friendship, because it was only one-sided, but you've turned it into something good for others. And shutting the door on him is a prison door. He's not coming out between the 3 sentences that he will get. So you shouldn't be scared anymore. You should be scared about going to prison and listening to those resounding, wonderful words you said over and over and over again. You are strong. He will continue to get weaker while you're stronger, while you're raising a happy, healthy boy, you said?
Boy.
Congratulations. You're
Thank you.
Outstanding, amazing. I'm so proud you came and talked to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Judge, this is my mom.
My name is Dawn Homer, D-A-W-N-H-O-M-E-R.
Thank you, and I saw you touching on your daughter, and I watched the tears. You have something to say?
I just want to address Larry, if I
You
could.
may.
Larry, as a mom of a gymnast, I want you to realize that you made all of us parents unwilling accomplices in your sick attack on our precious girls. We thought we were so lucky to have you, and as I've seen, you've made every one of these girls feel special. We were more than willing and confident in handing over our children to you, our precious daughters. It's so sad and sick. It is numbing to be witnessing this disgusting accounts of the girls that you took advantage of. It isn't satisfying to see what's left of you, but I can tell you it is very satisfying to see these young women rising up and becoming survivors and strong young women. They are the ones that are going to win in this, Larry. Thank you, Judge.
Ma'am, thank you, because as these women rise up and get stronger, what's happening, and what I'm seeing in this court, is that the parents, the friends, joining in, you are stronger, taller, mightier than even I ever thought. So I applaud you being here with your daughter and for your
Thank you.
words. Thank you.
Thank you much.
You know, the next survivor you'll hear from is Larissa Boyce. She is going to be publicly identified. She is accompanied by her husband Adam and her parents as well. I'll let her speak. Her photograph is on the screen as well.
Thank you, Alexis. Thank you for being here, for wanting to speak. Please state and spell your name for the record, and then you may proceed.
Okay. Larissa Boyce, Larissa Boyce.
What would you like me to know?
Well, I was wondering if my dad had made a statement. Could he say something first before I?
Certainly. Why don't you step up next to your daughter, please?
Yes.
Tell me your name.
William Michelle,
Spell.
William, W-I-L-L-I-A-M, Michelle, M-I-C-H-E-L-L.
Thank you, sir. What would you like me to know?
Well, I'd like to address this man over here.
You being defended? Superintendent, you may.
Your next doctor. When my wife and I first brought our daughter to you, Larissa, it was over 21 years ago. It was because the gymnast coach at MSU, Kathy Klages, personally told me that you were the best doctor in town, possibly in the country, because of your experience in dealing with gymnastics injuries, especially back injuries, and that you worked with Olympians. Feeling that we were privileged to have our daughter see you, believing she would get the best possible care, we were confident that she would be able to compete again, especially after your reassurance and intervention. Following many months of your treatment and therapy, and after her workouts, she came back to compete at a level 9. It was a great opportunity. She was so full of, we were so full of hope. We were hoping that she was going to knock it out of the world. But something was wrong. Something was wrong, Larry. The enthusiasm and intensity which she previously displayed was missing. She was trying to put her heart, she was trying, but her heart was no longer in it. Her performance at the meet was mediocre. It was not the girl we knew. As I remember, she dropped out of gymnastics right after that, and her attitude changed, and she started becoming more defiant. She challenged our authority. She was pushing the limits. It seemed that other things were more important, her social life, school activities. She never competed again. She did get into pole vaulting and track as it became a sport recognized for girls. And you know, in all this, you know, we, as parents, we had talked to her and we had wanted her best. And in our relationship with her, she wore a promise ring, Larry. She wore a promise ring before God and us to symbolize her commitment to us and God. She unashamedly vocalized to that to her friends. 16. At the end of the summer, or beginning of fall 2016, Larissa started to experience shingle-like symptoms, having all kinds of nervous anxiety and physical ailments. This coincided with the stories about you and your abusive practices being published. I asked her if any of this, had happened to her, and at first she denied it and defended you. And we heard this over and over again. What kind of control did you have? She couldn't stop. She couldn't stop having these horrible thoughts, and she couldn't stop having nightmares. And she revisited the Jennison Field House, and a flood of horrific memories came back into her. That's when she put it all together. And we started to go through the old memorabilia from high school. And what did we find? The same time she pulled out of gymnastics, we discovered some private journaling in her life. It revealed how she had been in a very dark place, and she hated herself, feeling like she had no reason to live, and that she didn't know why she felt this way. The revelation of your sick, twisted, demented, and deviant practices, I believe sanctioned and promulgated by MSU, has revealed a destructive black seed that you sowed into her, into my daughter's mind and in her body.
Sir, would you like to continue, or would you like to wait a moment? Our feed is on.
So they can hear it in the other room.
I'll wait.
All right, I thought you might say that. Let's go off the record.
It's your
No, we timed out. Oh, that's what it said, but I couldn't get my hands to,
yeah, I know.
yeah.
If this ever happens, I'll just tell them that I'm going to wait until the speaker is finished.
They prefer to be on, so I would direct them.
Okay.
Welcome back to Law&Crime Network, everybody. This is Jesse Weber. Unfortunately, this impactful statement that was from the father of one of the victims, Larissa Boyce, had to be interrupted because they have to change the battery camera. So the camera and the battery in the camera. So they're just going to wait. They're going to wait on that right there. But man, you were listening to some really strong statements today. Oh, here we go. We're back.
Revelation of your sick, twisted, demented, and deviant practices, I believe sanctioned and promulgated by MSU, has revealed that you sowed a destructive black seed into my innocent daughter's mind and body. The things hidden and done in darkness have all come to the light, all of them. Maybe not all. There's one who knows. Your narcissistic, psychotic thinking, being a master manipulator, led you down an inherent path, taking advantage of my sweet, delicate daughter's innocence, along with hundreds of other daughters after her. If you think for 1 minute it's only affected these young, blossoming lives, you are willfully naive and blind. The ramifications of your perverted practices has caused self-rage and anger for parental failure, marital instability, divorce, all sorts of family conflicts and upheavals, broken relationships, personal destructive behaviors like cutting, addictions, depression, attempted suicide, and even suicide. A couple hundred years ago, Larry, the fathers in this room would have drawn and quartered you for what you've done to their daughters. And there would be nobody that would have felt bad about it. But now, being more civilized, you're going to be locked away, hopefully for several lifetimes. If there's any redemption, if there's any opportunity for you to make things right, you need to expose those at MSU and the professional and medical worlds that had knowledge or should have had knowledge of what you were doing, and then analyze the system that broke down and failed these girls. What about your cohorts who knew the despicable practices and did nothing? What about the methods that could have been put in place to stop a guy like you? As a pastor, trained as a social worker, but as a pastor I've been asked, what is the spiritual and eternal future for Larry Nasser? The spiritual question for you, Larry Nasser, is not whether God can forgive you. Any sin a man can commit, God can forgive. He is infinitely bigger than you and the entire human race. The shed blood of his only son is more powerful than all the sins that man can commit for all time. The real question is, can you truly repent? Can you turn away from any self-justification? Can you have a true remorse for violating your sacred trust and honor as a doctor to do no harm? I doubt that you can. I doubt it. I doubt if in your heart of hearts that you can believe that what you did was truly wrong. All the years of doing it, all the justification. I doubt if you can ever realize the pain and suffering that you've caused so many individuals and families who will live with the damage you created, being crippled the rest of their lives for generations. Generations. Not just here. Future kids. Things that are passed on. Curses. The only hope, and I say this, the only hope for you that possibly exists for you eternally is if you learn in the short time you have left here on earth what another despicable, horrible man learned. His name was John Newton. You know who John Newton is? John Newton, you got to learn this. John Newton was a man who wrote the song Amazing Grace. He was a slaver, and he sent many to hell. He spent many over the sides. He ruined horrible lives. You got to learn what got him there. To those that have been abused, I say this. And I say this to my daughter, and I say this, I've said this, and I continue to say it. A friend of mine, a good friend of mine, has said something about being enslaved. He said that holding forgiveness is like drinking poison and expecting someone else to die. Every one of the girls, the parents, the siblings, the grandparents have a choice to live in a prison and torture by holding this unforgiveness, or in freedom and power, being able to soar again like eagles by releasing and forgiving and letting go of the debt that is owed to you. It is a choice. It's not an emotion. It's an act of will, a decision. If I keep making this choice, keep releasing him from the debt, keep choosing to forgive so that you will experience freedom and lose the weight so you can soar like eagles again.
Sir, thank you very much for your words. I appreciate you being here and supporting your daughter and all the girls, the survivors. You're right in asking for change. I can only sentence. But you are right. You are making changes with your voice and with your comments. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Are you ready now?
Go for it.
I think my husband wanted to say a couple words too.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, it's a family affair, that's fine. I need your name for the record.
Sure. It's Adam Boyce, Adam Boyce.
Thank you. You may proceed.
Dear Honorable Judge Aquilina, I write to you to give you a husband's perspective regarding the impact of Larry Nassar's horrendous crimes against my wife, Larissa Boyce. It seems very surreal that this reality is a new normal in our life. It has been unwillingly dug up and ripped to the surface of our lives. But it is what it is. And I am a firm believer that God has a plan in it all. I am requesting that you give the maximum sentence to Nasser with the plea that was agreed upon. The impact of Nassar's crimes against my wife will forever affect our family and me. Larissa and I have 4 children who have all been on the front lines of dealing with this situation. The pain that we have watched Larissa deal with over the last year or so has been unfathomable. I have watched her deal with and walked with her through every stage of grief. Not that the grieving has come even close. It hasn't and won't for a long time. When we initially heard of the allegations against Nassar in late August of 2016, Larissa was quick to defend this monster. She could not believe that anyone would want to hurt him, his reputation, and his family. Thinking back now, it seems so messed up. But that was how badly he had manipulated her thinking. Something happened at that point in her health that is hard to explain or understand. But I do believe there's connections between the mind and body that we can't necessarily understand or comprehend. I can tell you that it was and still is very real for us. Larissa began to have health issues almost immediately after hearing about the news of Nassar. It started with shingles. At the age of 35, my healthy wife got shingles out of nowhere. We could not understand it. She was physically sick for months. Her physical ailments continued to escalate with kidney stones, migraines, nerve pain, depression, panic attacks, a flare-up of endometriosis. insomnia, and nightmares. She went to her doctor, who referred her to multiple specialists who could not figure out what was going on with her body. She still had not come to terms with the abuse that had taken place so many years ago. She was not sleeping well, she was not eating well, and she was not living well. During this initial 6-month period and the onset of her physical health issues, she lost a significant amount of hair and weight. She felt unmotivated, frustrated, physically drained, was not acting like herself. All of these physical ailments impacted our family life. With 4 children who were 10, 8, 6, and 2 during this period, it was impossible for them not to be caught in the crossfire. In late December of 2016, the news of Nassar resurfaced again, and Larissa was still defending these treatments, this abuse. This changed when she had a vivid memory of one particular incident of abuse. For many reasons that she will detail, Larissa pushed these memories down and tried to justify why her respected doctor would take off his belt or turn off the lights during a medical appointment in the basement of Jennison Fieldhouse. Or simply try to ignore that these things had taken place because she didn't want to think that she was dirty. This initial memory led to a series of memories that flooded every part of her being. She began reliving these awful memories, trying to make sense of what had happened to her as a child. Making sense of this would never come, and it never will. Larissa was laid out in bed for days with feelings of betrayal and confusion. She was an emotional wreck. She began to have nightmares about Nassar. She could not escape his grasp. 20 years after the abuse started, she reverted back to an emotionally distraught 16-year-old girl. As a husband, I was helpless. There is nothing in life that can prepare someone to help their spouse through emotional trauma this intense. I did whatever I could to give her space to work through these things and take care of the kids and our house while balancing a full-time job as a choir teacher. We did our best to keep moving forward through this chaos of this mess. There was a weekend in late January of 2017 that I was out of town with my 2 oldest boys at a hockey tournament, and I received a panicked phone call from Larissa. She was at home with our 2 youngest children, and she was having thoughts of suicide. After knowing this woman for nearly 20 years, I had never heard her talk this way. Thankfully, her dad was able to come to our house to be with her and our 2 youngest children while I was out of town, but the impact was traumatizing. We soon learned from the neurologist that everything that she was experiencing were symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, common theme. Thankfully, her doctors were able to help her get to the bottom of what was going on with the physical and mental trauma that she was experiencing and help her accordingly. My worldview has been significantly and forever altered. I have a difficult time trusting my children to anyone. I often have terrible thoughts of rage toward this awful human being whom I've never met. I have trouble going to sleep at night and wake up in the middle of the night with my mind racing. My blood pressure is higher. I have less patience. I am working through a temporary state of depression, temporary, that was thrust upon me. It's hard to get motivated to do daily life. Getting up and going through the motions of work is a significant challenge. As a teacher, I don't have the luxury of hiding in my work like someone said the other day. I have to be on all the time, and the days I haven't make a difference in my students' lives as well. The lack of sleep and constant physical struggles have an impact on our marriage, our parenting, and our relationships. We have watched people who we thought were close friends simply distance themselves and stop talking to us. We have to seek constant support from our parents to help with our children for various appointments. Countless hours with attorneys, counselors, and reporters. To say it's been a difficult year and a half would be a severe understatement, and I know we're not through it. It will continue to take time. So much time has already been ripped away from our family through this ordeal. This will continue to be time taken away from our family. It's the nature of the beast. It's disheartening because this is the time we will never be able to recover. I will finish things up here. When I was writing this, my children were getting out of bed. It was an early morning where I wasn't able to sleep. Judge Aquilina, I'm asking that you give Nassar the maximum sentence within the parameters of the plea deal. I absolutely believe Nassar deserves a far greater sentence, but we take solace in knowing that he already has been sentenced to 60 years in federal prison. My concern is that if you give a sentence beyond that, Nassar will withdraw his plea, and we will be right back to square one with a trial. I believe that scenario would be emotionally devastating for many victims and their families. People are anticipating and hoping for a formal ending to this case. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, sir, for being the rock. It seems that the family has stood around your wife, daughter, wife, mother, and really helped. And some husbands walk. I applaud you for staying and for your words, and I will consider them. Thank you for everything.
Okay, now I'm ready.
You may proceed.
Honorable Judge Aquilina, first I would like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to address the person who abused me. I hope and pray with everything inside of me that this will help me move on and forward in my healing process. The crimes that Larry Nassar committed against me have altered my life forever. I first met him when I was a teenager at Spartan Youth Gymnastics. I trained at Jennison Fieldhouse, the same facility where the Michigan State University gymnasts trained. I felt honored to train at the same gym as the college gymnasts that I looked up to. I felt privileged to be part of a program that was run by Kathy Klages, a woman who coached those gymnasts that I looked up to. I dreamed to someday be one of those girls and compete for MSU. In fact, Kathy even told my parents that I had the potential to make it onto the team. I still remember the first time I met you, Larry, because it was in the middle of a gymnastics practice. It was during a time that John Geddert had left Great Lakes Gymnastics, and many of the other gymnasts followed him. While he was looking for a new gym to open under his own name, he and the girls that followed him came to work out with us at Jennison Fieldhouse. And you were there, I think, on Monday nights every week. What I did not realize at the time was that John, Kathy, and Larry had been close friends and had an incestuous relationship since their college days. They had each other's backs no matter what. Larry had adults on his side, protecting him, enabling his abuse, and helping him achieve a godlike status. A truth I wish I would have known back then. I remember the Twist Stars girls would tell me, "You're really, really special if you get invited over to Larry's house for treatments." I naively longed to be invited to his house because I wanted to feel like I was on the inside circle. One of the special ones. He had connections to the Olympics. Why would I question his authority or his intentions when he was revered as the best sports medicine doctor around? He had a godlike status in the gymnastics world. He knew this and took full advantage of it. He used gifts, charm, MSU connections, his status as an Olympic doctor to groom and prey on his victims, and I was one of them. I recall Larry always being very casual with his conversations, asking me about my sex life and how often I gave my boyfriend a blowjob. Even though I told him I was not sexually active, he still insisted that I must do it all the time. I remember thinking, if I asked him, would he tell me and show me how to do that? What kind of doctor talks that way with their patients? What kind of doctor talks to minors this way? Someone who is not a real doctor. Someone who is sick and twisted. I thought you were just trying to be funny and connect with me, but that is not what you were doing. Nasser would tell me to call him and him only if I ever needed anything. Not to call the medical office, but to page him directly, back when there were pagers, and he would call me back and help me with anything I needed. I thought it was because he truly cared about me as a person, but I was utterly deceived. It was only because he did not want his gruesome behavior to be exposed. As time went on, he started making subtle physical advancements during my office visits. He would unhook my bra without warning so that he could have full access to evaluate and massage my entire back. Or at least as a child, that is the reason I assumed he did it. He would conveniently brush his hands down the sides of my body and touch my nipples. I rationalized this behavior as him not realizing how close he got to sensitive areas because I was a physically underdeveloped girl. It seemed like at each visit he pushed the physical boundaries a little more so that I did not notice or really understand what was happening. I remember one particular incident. It got to the vile point where he turned the lights off, removed his belt, while making grunting noises and sounds like he was masturbating, while inserting his ungloved finger inside of me. I remember trying to get up off of that table because I felt so uncomfortable. But you nervously laughed and pushed my head back down and told me not to move. I felt trapped. I was stuck. I wanted to scream. I wanted to scream for help. The only reason the abuse stopped that day was because an employee knocked on the door. I remember sitting up quickly, looking back at you, seeing your untucked shirt while wiping your hands off on a towel. You then tossed the towel at me and answered the door after tucking your shirt back into your pants. I was once again defeated. Another horrific memory of the abuse that took place was in the basement of Jennison Fieldhouse during one of my gymnastics practices. He would tell me to come see him whenever I was there. He would tell me when he would be there, after hours, after all the trainers would leave, and tell me to come down and see him. He carried around a little manila folder pretending like it was a legitimate medical file of his encounters with me. Where that is now, I do not know. After this one particular disturbing incident of abuse, I felt dirty and disgusting. As soon as I returned to the gym after enduring the abuse at the hands of Larry Nassar, I chalked up my hands and parts of my body to cover up what had just happened. I had become his real-life child pornography subject, his plaything and experiment. I saw Nasser for at least 4 years, based on my recorded medical charts that I had requested from MSU Sports Medicine when this all came out, but instead I was told they had no record of me being a patient with them. They would not even give me my own records. Thankfully, Detective Andrea Munford worked her magic and was able to obtain my medical records. I had seen him over 100 times, and the vast majority of those times he abused me, even when I had knee and ankle injuries. He always seemed to get to my back and abuse me. My thinking was so warped and confused as I had rewired my thought process to believe I was wrong for thinking of things sexually. Years after first meeting Nassar and enduring his abuse, I graduated from Michigan State University. I then applied for physical therapy school, and Larry was one of the ones that wrote me a letter of recommendation for the doctoral program. I don't know if you remember that. It's possible that moving away from East Lansing area was one of the best things that happened to me to get out of his hands of abuse. I've experienced a tremendous amount of pain and damage as the result of the crimes Nassar has committed. And I know he touched on it, so maybe I'll skip some of this.
It's your record to make.
Okay.
It's up to you.
Over the past year, I have endured many physical manifestations as a result of the trauma of his abuse. After I heard the first allegations, my body started to attack itself. I became physically ill with shingles at the age of, how old was I? 35? Migraines, depression, panic attacks, PTSD, insomnia, and nightmares. I too have woken up drenched in sweat. I too have woken up crying in the middle of sleeping, having a nightmare of the abuse I endured. Nightmares of MSU silencing me over and over and over again. I have 4 beautiful children, and many days over this past year, my ability to run my household has been impaired. Many days it has been painful to even get out of bed. I am tired, and some days I just want to sleep. Sleep away the pain, the memories, the flashbacks that haunt me. Doing ordinary household chores and just being a mom and a wife takes an enormous amount of strength and determination to push past the agony I am persisting through. My poor children and husband have only had pieces of me this year. They deserve better. My heart hurts. My body hurts. My mind hurts. My family hurts. My entire life has been affected. There was even one day that I thought about ending my own life, but thankfully I have hope in God and His love for me and the peace He gives. Slowly this past year, I began to realize that I was conditioned to believe a lie and that Larry Nassar's actions toward me were in fact sexual abuse. I cannot express the amount of hurt and betrayal that I felt knowing his intention, your intention, was selfish and evil. I was not protected by the adults I trusted. His actions did not only affect me, they infected everybody in my family. I ask that you sentence Larry Nassar to the maximum amount of time based on the plea deal that he agreed to. I'm only one person out of thousands of lives who have been negatively affected by him. My story is only one account of the damage his actions have done to a life with family, friends, and careers. Larry Nassar, it is difficult to comprehend and understand the emotions that I am feeling today. I have finally begun to acknowledge the painful reality that I am a victim of childhood sexual abuse and that you, Larry, are the abuser. This does not define me, but it is a part of my story and a beast that I will continue to battle. You see me here today as Larissa Lee Boyce. I am standing here as a woman of strength and resilience and of courage that I never knew existed inside of me. When you first met me, I was Larissa Michelle, a confident but vulnerable, trusting 16-year-old gymnast whose dream was to make it on the MSU college gymnastics team. You were going to help me get there. I remember feeling awestruck at my first appointment with you. As I looked at all the pictures on the walls of you and the gymnast I idolized, a common theme. I could not believe how lucky I was to have the privilege of seeing you. You were the one who helped Carrie Strug after her injury at the 1996 Olympics. The sad truth is that you actually made me think that you cared about my well-being as a child, as an individual. I felt just as important as the Olympians you treated. I thought you saw my worth as a human being. I thought you believed in me. Not only that, you made it seem as if you cared about other areas of my life. Children want to know that they are accepted and loved for who they are and that they are special and worth your time. Children want to be seen and heard. I thought you heard me. I thought you had my back. But you knew this, and you took full advantage of it for your own sick pleasures. I want you to know that I am not that same person that you met when I was a child. I am no longer naive. My eyes have been opened to the monster you tried to hide in the shadows. Through this horrific process, I have struggled with feeling sorry for you. I saw the good sides. At least I thought I did. I finally realized that you made these choices to hurt so many little girls. You have brought these consequences upon yourself. And you have to live with the effects of them. Just as I will have to live with the pain, betrayal, and heartache you caused when you put your selfish desires ahead of my well-being. And the disturbing truth is, you could have been stopped back in 1997. You know that a teammate and I brought concerns about what you were doing to Kathy Klages on the same night. She was a person I looked up to. She was a person I thought had my back. But instead of notifying authorities or even my parents, we were interrogated. Imagine that. I don't know if she told you about that night, but she interrogated us. We were led to believe that we were misunderstanding a medical technique. Do you know how she came to that conclusion? Was it when she called you and talked to you about it? She conducted her own unqualified investigation. She humiliated and silenced me as she began to call in all of my Spartan Youth teammates into her office. While I sat there, in humiliation, she asked them in small groups if they ever felt uncomfortable with the treatments from you. All but the one other girl said no. There was one more who had experienced the same abuse. Do you remember who that was, Larry? She already spoke to you the other day. Kathy continued her interrogation of us by pulling the MSU college-level gymnasts into the office. She left the room. We sat on the green carpet in her office, talking to these girls that we looked up to. Can you, even for 1 second, begin to imagine the humiliation I felt when the college gymnasts came into Kathy's office to explain their treatments with you? I told somebody. I told an adult. I told Michigan State University back in 1997. Instead of being protected, I was humiliated, I was in trouble, and brainwashed into believing that I was the problem. This MSU employee then fed me back to you, the wolf, to continue to be devoured. Instead of taking the right steps to report my concerns, she betrayed my confidence. Do you remember talking to her? Do you remember when she called and told you about my concerns? Was I the first person that brought issues of your abuse to light? How did you spin that? Kathy only empowered you by telling you that I spoke up about it. Had I known that you were such close friends, I would have never told her. She put her friendship with you above all the concerns I had. She protected you over me, a child. Kathy enabled and emboldened your pedophilia, which only continued to allow you to prey on hundreds of innocent victims, many who are sitting in this room. They should not be here. Some weren't even born yet. I dreaded my next appointment with you because I was afraid that Kathy was going to tell you about my concerns. And unfortunately, I was right. I felt ashamed, embarrassed, and overwhelmed that I had talked to Kathy about this. I vividly remember when you walked into that room, closed the door behind you, pulled up your stool and sat down in front of me and said, "So, I talked to Kathy." As soon as I heard those words, my heart sank. My confidence had been betrayed. I wanted to crawl into the deepest, darkest hole and hide. Instead, feeling trapped, I sat there listening to you explain away your abuse. Listening to you tell me that my intuitions were wrong. Listening to you take away any ounce of strength and confidence I had left. Through this belittlement, I felt the need to apologize to you. I apologized to you. I told you how sorry I was for the misunderstanding that happened and that it was all my fault. How do you think that made me feel? You then told me what you were doing was to help me. So, to prove to you and myself that what you were doing and saying was the truth and I didn't have a dirty mind, I hopped up onto that treatment table to allow you to continue treating, rather abusing me. That day, the assault was different. I felt like you were mad at me. You were rough and you were harsh that day. More so than on any other appointment. I remember laying on the table in horror, humiliation, and disgust. I had been defeated. You remained in control of the situation and continued. You and Kathy silenced me. You took away my confidence, you took away my innocence, and you took away my voice. But today is a new day. Today I am claiming my freedom from you. Today I am no longer bound by, I am breaking free from the chains you put me in 20 years ago. Today I am finally free. I am standing here reclaiming the voice that you stole from me. I am reclaiming my confidence. I am reclaiming the power that you took from me. I'm reclaiming Larissa Michelle, that innocent girl you abused. I am no longer that little girl. I am taking her back. I have the control now. If only I could rewind time and speak to her. Tell her that her intuitions were right. To put on the armor of confidence, fight, and keep speaking up until somebody listens to her. Oh, how things could have been different. Instead, we're sitting here in this courtroom 20 years later. That little girl is still a piece of me. And now, finally, after 20 years, she gets to see the truth. I get to see the truth and justice finally prevail. 20 years of carrying this inside of me, thinking I was the problem. No longer. Today, I am able to say that you were the problem. You, Kathy, John Geddert, and the institutions like MSU, USAG, and Geddert's beloved Twistars are the ones who enabled and protected you, and you know this. You were all a part of the problem. They enabled you with their negligence. It was not me. It was you. Finally, I am able to say that to your face. I will say it again. You were the problem. I was not the problem. Lindsay was absolutely right when she said, "You pissed off the wrong army of women." I am angry that you stole my innocence with your selfish and sick fetish. You ripped the sport I loved from my heart, that first day you chose to gratify your own desires, ripped it from me. Without gymnastics, I felt lost. As a teenager, I even had suicidal thoughts. I would picture driving my car into a tree. I prayed almost every night that God would take me home to heaven because I did not know where my pain was coming from. Last year, I sought answers and explored my past after all of this started coming out. I came across a journal entry that I wrote during the time that you were abusing me. It was dated January 16th, 1998. I had just turned 17, and I'm going to share that with you right now. Slowly, day by day, it is creeping up on me, always one step closer to devouring my soul. I feel so unworthy of living and being happy. I am always feeling the guilt of something, which gets heavier as each day passes. It's almost as if I have a pile of bricks weighing down on my shoulders. Every day, a new one is added on my weary back. I'm tired of being so unhappy with things in my life right now. I even feel guilty for feeling guilty. I guess that I am just a mental case. Will these feelings change and leave me in peace? Or will I have to live with this the rest of my life? I do everything wrong. A 17-year-old girl wrote that. Do you see that dark place that she was in? To have those words, have that buried inside of me? I did not understand the pain I was feeling, but now it makes complete sense. You tore me apart with your selfish desires, but like I said earlier, I am strong and I am really resilient. I will survive, and I choose to be stronger because of it. You chose the wrong prey. We are athletes. We will not give up or give in. We are trained to fight past the pain and hurt. United, we are now an army of amazing women who are paving the path to justice and change. If you need more information on this, talk to Lindsay. It's fitting that you are currently wearing the shackles. Maybe now you have a slight picture of the inescapable prison you put me in 20 years ago. I thought, I must have a dirty mind. Your disgusting actions destroyed my confidence, shattered any trust I had in my own intuitions. To this day, I question every decision I make, no matter how simple it may seem. But I am finally waking up. I am finally rediscovering the strength I have within myself. I am remembering the woman God made me to be. I am not just going to survive through this, I will thrive.
Yes.
It is crazy for me to fathom that you had the audacity to compare me and the other girls to alcoholism, as if we were an inanimate, lifeless drink to be consumed. You did try to consume us. That statement showed that you truly have no clue about the way you hurt me and hundreds of other girls. We are not inanimate objects. We are real people with feelings and emotions. You will never truly realize or understand what you have done to harm me until you can grasp the truth that I am a human being with a life, a soul, a heart that beats, and a mind that remembers. You may not remember me or the specific things you did to me, but I have not forgotten. Through time, my pain and sadness will get easier, while yours gets harder. Right now, it is like an open wound, but eventually it will heal and turn into a scar. I will not forget, I will remember, but it will not hurt as much, and I will be stronger. I am no longer going to be bound by the things you did to me or the way you betrayed my trust. I am letting go of the hold you had in my mind. I am releasing you to God and His judgment. You are in His hands now. May you ponder that each and every day you wake up behind bars. May you understand each day the imprisonment you subjected me and hundreds of other innocent girls to with your horrendous abuse. Today, I can finally say that I am free from the hold you had over me. Today, I am seizing my power and control you took from me. I am free from the chains of abuse that bound me. May God have mercy on your soul.
Yes. Yes.
I do want to say that yesterday afternoon, I received a Facebook message that stated to me, "Hell will be a very hot place for your lies about Larry Nassar. Shame on you. You're probably getting even because he wouldn't let you have your way with something." How ignorant, people. Just want to say that. If you have nothing nice to say, don't say it. Also, I asked Luanna Simon to be here for my statement. She told me she could not fit it in her schedule. And then I saw today there was a statement by MSU that said MSU has been perceived to be tone deaf. Well, you are. I told you back in 1997. You knew back then, and every time you say you didn't know, you are re-shaming, re-victimizing, and calling me a liar. The other day, when I asked Simon for the favor, she said, "I'll just watch it on the live feed." How is that not tone deaf? How is that not doing anything to help the victims? That's not doing anything. They say they're doing things to help the victims. I'm sorry, MSU, if you're listening, that right there shows that you're tone deaf. I pray that this creates a change and a wave, transparency, so that this never, ever has to happen again. Thank you.
Ma'am, thank you for your words. I'm not tone deaf. I've heard every word. The world has heard every word. And your words are very clear and very brave, and your thinking has never been confused. So at some point, I don't know if you've done this already or not, and no, I'm not a therapist, but I do know that you need to forgive that 16-year-old, that girl who didn't know because you trusted the wrong people, and that happens all the time to children. So your message is being delivered. We need to teach our children to question and re-question, and we need adults to speak loudly on behalf of children. You have killed the beast that you were afraid of with your strength and with your words, and you and the other survivors have exposed the beast.
Yes.
Defendant, through his own actions, not any judge's bias, not for fun, not because we like to waste our time, but 3 judges will ensure, based on the law, based on all of your comments, which you have all a right to, the record that you've made is incredible, collectively and individually. And defendant will, because of judges and the law, be trapped in a small cell with bars. He's defeated. You are never defeated. You just didn't know better. You do now. And other children now know better too because of your words.
Yes.
Passing on that message is absolutely critical. I will pass it on like a federal judge did, like Judge Cunningham will do. We will pass the message on in our sentencing. But I know that your voice and the voice of your lovely family will never stop talking. That's critical, and I so am honored that all of you have been here to speak. And thank you for your words and the time that you spent agonizing over your words. It was time well spent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
if anybody wants to leave your equipment, we have a waiver and release, so it'll be right in place on Monday. Otherwise, get here early and we'll set it up again. For all of you, we plan to work Monday 9 to 5. I don't know if we'll finish. We do have additional names. So I don't know if sentencing is going to be Monday or Tuesday, but I've cleared out my calendar. So Monday and Tuesday, I'm ready for whoever wants to proceed to speak, and we will get to sentencing. We're getting closer. Thank you. Have a wonderful weekend. That's all for the record. All right.